Welcome. Come on in. Come on in. Come on in, everybody. So, welcome to have you. Welcome to the Jaybefaunt channel. I'm your host, James Fauntleroy. Beautiful Tuesday afternoon to every single one of you. Just to let you guys know, it is Tuesday, March 10th, 2026, and we are live. Yes, good to have all of you guys here. My apologies for being tardy. Yeah, I had to deal with a lot of things, but good to see all of you guys here. And if you guys would like to, please go ahead and do all the things like give a like to the stream. This helps me out to be able to reach more people as well. Also, if you guys have not already, you guys can also subscribe to my Substack coming up here at jaybefaunt.substack.com. Gives you email notifications whenever I go live, upload clips, or write any articles. So you guys always have that to look forward to as well. And also, if you guys would like to, you guys can also send me any videos that you guys find interesting that you want me to respond to. Or if you guys just want to ask a question, have a video response from me, you guys can do that at QBounty at qbounty.com/Jaybefaunt. So thank you very much for that there. Good to see everybody in here. I'm going to make this very quick, just a few hellos in the chat, and then we're going to get into the stories because I actually have a good news story that just popped up in front of me that I need to get to as well. But the first few people that just came in the chat, we're going to say hello, and then we're going to get right into it. Sorry to rush, but I'm a little late. That's on me. All right, so we have Edward coming in saying, what's up, JB? Good to see you, Edward. Nice to have you there. And I will get to those other chats in a little bit. Also, thank you very much. Zero says, I always thought red delicious was another term for apple, not a kind of apple. Also, Iran's drones are overwhelming U.S.-Israeli defenses by sheer number. Not looking good for the empire. Yes, we're going to be getting into that, especially because of what is going on and really how the U.S. is deeply unhinged as well in regards to this war. We have Jacqueline coming in saying, hey, GB, hey, everyone. Good to see you, Jacqueline. We have Holly coming in saying, greetings, JB. Good to see you, Holly. Bryce coming in saying, morning, JB, morning, comrades. And also, Bryce, I saw you at the Mutual Aid Workshop for Savvy Sabs. I saw you in there. All right, bro. I see you. All right. CBC voter coming in saying, happy Tuesday at JB. Good to see you, CBC voter. Dystopia Daily says, looking great in that orange plaid. Thank you so very much. This is actually one of my favorite shirts. I try not to wear it too often because I don't want it to be something that you always see me in. It's just like, oh, it's boring, JB in the orange, right? I want it to be something that's like, oh, that color pops. So yeah. Jay says, hi, JB. Finished reading Bloods, A History of the Vietnam War as told by Black veterans. Ooh, that sounds like a great book to read. I do know that, excuse me, Snoop Dogg's father was in the Vietnam War, and he actually talks about what his father experienced as a Vietnam vet. And really the Vietnamese, the Viet Cong, they were like, we have no issues with you Black people. We already know you guys are oppressed in your own country. So it gets deep. It gets deep. Sorry, guys, I'm also still sick, so I'm recovering, but slow. All right, we have Sean Rockers coming in saying, good afternoon, JB. Good to see you, Sean. Jimmy Apples says, yo, keep smashing, JB. Thank you very much, Jimmy Apples. All right, thank you so very much. And we have Roger Meadows says, do you know any of the progressive leftist socialist ballot initiative Floridians I can reach out to? I will have to think about it. I may have made some connections, but I'm not sure if I can remember any offhand. But yeah, thank you very much for that. And all right, I said hello to everybody. All right, let's get into the show today. We have 3 stories to get into, so we'll be getting into that as well. All right, so let's take a look at the thumbnail, and then we'll get into it. All right, so first we're going to be talking about, later in the show today, we're going to be talking about the chaos agent. We're going to be talking about the chaos agent. You see there, Lindsey Graham. I'm trying to be very nice. I don't want to be nice, but I'm trying to be nice. I don't want to sound infantile and insulting, but I have some things that I think about when it comes to Lindsey Graham. But we're also going to be talking about the press conference that Donald Trump gave yesterday as well in regards to the Iran war. So we'll be talking about all those things. And then we're going to be talking about workers in danger. This is something that is happening to trans people, particularly trans workers in Kansas. Now, I know a lot of people don't like to hear about different identities, but look, this is particularly towards a certain group of workers that is going to harm them in economic ways. And so we have to talk about that. But first thing we're going to be talking about is the issue of sterilizing Black women. That's going to be our first story on the subject. So we'll be getting into that in a little bit. But before we get into that, I do have a good news story. It's going to be very quick. It's going to be like no more than 5 minutes. But I just really want to get into this because I found this story and I found it. It was posted just recently. And so let me see. Here we go. Yes. All right. So I'm going to share this really quick. And this is some good news from a previous story that I actually reported on last month, actually. So let's share this really quick. So this is out of the AP, the Associated Press, says Alabama governor, who is Kay Ivey, commutes death sentence of inmate whose accomplice fired fatal shot. Yes, let's get into this. Alabama Governor Kay Ivey on Tuesday commuted the death sentence of a 75-year-old inmate who was set to be executed this week, even though he was not in the building when the victim was killed. Ivey reduced Charles Burton's sentence to life in prison without the possibility of parole, marking just the second time the Republican governor has granted clemency to a death row inmate since taking office in 2017. So remember when I talked about this about a month ago, and I raised the alarm bells on this, and I didn't see too many people talk about it. I'm gonna be honest with you. I haven't saw too many people talk about this story. And thankfully it was commuted. But what if it wasn't? Right? You know, like I'm thinking to myself, if he was executed today, my question is how many people will be screaming and going, hashtag, justice for Sonny or justice for Charles Burton. Hashtag rest in power Charles Burton. You know what I mean? And so this is one of the reasons why I cover stories like this, because even though it may not be popular, it's the right thing to do. And I'm gonna be honest with you. When it comes to a lot of the progressive and left voices, especially that are white in this space, have they talked about this? I mean, and this is not a difficult story to purse through. This is not a difficult story to say whether, he should be sentenced to death or not. If you're against the death penalty, then number one, you should be talking about this. And even if you are for the death penalty, the conditions and the evidence surrounding his case does not warrant him to be put to death. It's very clear. And yet, I didn't really hear much. So I'm happy this is happening. I think this is a victory. I'm going to go even further. I don't think that Mr. Burton should be in prison at all, given the circumstances of the case, because yes, it was a robbery, but it should have just stopped at that. He should have got arrested and sentenced for robbery, and that was it. But you got to remember, he's a black man, so therefore he gets punished harsher than his white counterparts. So that's something that I think that we have to take into consideration there. But I am happy that Mr. Burton is still alive. I am happy that his sentence was commuted, even though I have a lot of disagreements with Governor Kay Ivey. Thank you for doing the right thing at least this one time. I thank you, because Mr. Burton his sentence should have been commuted. So I just wanted to bring that good news to you guys. really quick before we get into the rest of the show. So, hopefully, further justice and acts of justice like this will continue to happen. All right, so of course, we're going to be talking about the story in regards to working class women. In particular, a lot of them are being unnecessarily treated in many ways by this OBGYN. So we're going to be discussing this story. All right, so let's get into this. Disgusting. Many women who are working class, and particularly many Black women, have been harmed by this doctor that has performed unnecessary surgeries and even sterilizing them, all because he got some extra money for doing surgeries. This is egregious and medical malpractice in the highest order, and I'm just now finding out about this. But this speaks to a larger issue within the capitalist system that we live in. So I want to get into the story here because I think it is absolutely necessary that we get into just the elements of why we have to be vigilant into demanding a different system. So let's get into this. And because we have to keep in mind that they will do whatever they need to in order to make an extra buck. So let me make sure I have this ready for all of you. All right. Okay. All right, so let's get into the story here with this physician, Dr. Perwaiz.
Okay. All right, testing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Test.
General News Jason Marks has covered this trial since day one. He joins us
live at Norfolk Federal Court with the latest tonight, Jason.
And Tom, the jury just heard from a financial expert with the FBI. My name is Jason Marks. I'm a reporter here at Wavy TV.
That's the latest here live in Norfolk. Jason Marks, 10 on your side.
I personally had never heard of Jaybefaunt Perwaiz before November 2019, but that's when he was arrested by the FBI.
New tonight, federal authorities arrested a Chesapeake doctor they say performed unnecessary surgeries on unsuspecting patients.
Jaybefaunt Perwaiz was an OBGYN, and we started looking into him in December of 2019. And our goal was really to show what Dr. Jaybefaunt Perwaiz was doing through the eyes of his patients. And then what we really wanted to do was go a step further and try to figure out who dropped the ball here. Were there red flags along the way? This was a doctor who practiced in this area for 40 years. And were there red flags, and could something have happened to have stopped him before the FBI had to step in? From what we understand, Perwaiz was a solo practitioner, meaning he practiced by himself. He had 2 offices, both of them in Chesapeake, and we're told that he had thousands and thousands of patients over his 40-year career. When you think of a doctor, you hope your doctor's comforting, especially when he's an OBGYN. So what we did was we started interviewing patients.
His demeanor is incredibly suave. He's very easily approachable. He's gives you the level of comfort that one seeks in a doctor of his sorts.
What was he like?
I thought he was nice. A lot of patients were there that I knew. He seemed like he knew his job. I mean, I felt comfortable at first.
When you think about Dr. Jaybefaunt Perwaiz on the surface now, it really seems like it's the all-American story, like the American.
So let's stop there for a second, because one of the things that a lot of people have been saying is that he's pretty charismatic, very comfortable, seems very nice. And sometimes you think that a doctor is bad just because of maybe their delivery, or how they are with you. And sometimes, yeah, that they could be, but sometimes it also may be that when it comes to the work that they do, it's great work. It's just they're not great communicators. On the flip side, you could have some doctors that are great at delivery, great at bedside manner, but when it comes to the work that they do, it could be subpar. And then you also may have some that are, have great delivery, great when it comes to the work they do as well, and they're more far few in between, right? And so we have to be careful, but especially within a system where profits are seen as more important than people. And so the profits come before real patient health. And so you're going to see that throughout, especially in the way he has his approach to the way he treats women in his practice. So we're going to get deeper into this as well. So going back to the American dream.
On the surface now, it really seems like it's the all-American story, like the American dream. He was born in a small town in Pakistan. They lived in a small house with no running water, no electricity. Life was tough for Perwaiz. He ended up graduating medical school in Pakistan, and that was in the late 70s. And that's when he decided, you know what, I'm going to test my hand in the United States. It's time to leave Pakistan. Let me go after that American dream. He came over here in the late 70s, did not speak any English, only had $30 to his name.
I do think he was a charismatic man. You hear about his backstory, and that's the American dream. He came over here and just made his way, and it's impressive to do that.
I think when you're a patient of any doctor, not just Dr. Perwaiz's, but I think we're all guilty of it in some sense. We go to the doctor, and the doctor gives us a diagnosis and says, hey, you need surgery. And many times you go get that surgery or you go get that procedure, and we all do it. And that's because we're all inclined to trust our doctors, because doctors take that oath.
As a doctor.
Now, hang on. I want to point something out as well. Here's something that I'm not sure if he thought about this, the reporter. But sometimes there's also, yes, we see what doctor says as authority. At the same time, there may be points where we want to get a second opinion, but we can't afford to. Because in order to be able to get a second opinion, that means maybe a second round of tests to see another doctor. And that assessment from that doctor also means billing from another physician or another physician's group, or a clinic or a hospital. And so the cost that comes in, it's like, I can't afford to get a second opinion. And then also, if you try to get a second opinion, is it within network? Right? Is insurance actually going to cover that second opinion? And so this is the class aspect that goes into this too. Because a lot of times people may want one, but they just can't afford it. Let's move on.
He was okay, but I had a feeling that I didn't know if I really trusted him all that well.
He had given me a checkup and out of nowhere told me I had to have my ovaries removed ASAP. And I had asked him if there was enough time for me to get my daughter off of work so she can take me to the hospital to have this done. He said, yeah, but you have to have it done as soon as possible. So I'll give you till Saturday
What he did is he put me into stirrups. Sometimes with the nurse, sometimes without the nurse being in the room. It was just depending on how many patients he had that day. He told me that this was...
Hang on, let me ask you guys this, because I've, look, male, gay dude, didn't grow up with any sisters, right? If you're a male OBGYN, aren't you supposed to have a female nurse present when you're doing procedures? And that sound weird? Like, men, cis men, right? In the chat. Doesn't that sound weird for there to be a male OBGYN, but then he's performing procedures on women, but there's no female nurse in the room, or another female doctor, or a PA? Am I wrong? Because something don't sound right. Dystopia says, James, this is why I don't go to male OBGYNs. Wow. I'm just thinking to myself, I'm like, wait a minute, right? It's supposed to be a man. There's supposed to be a female present for that. It's weird, man. Very weird.
Sometimes without the nurse being in the room. It was just depending on how many patients he had that day. He told me that this was going to sting a little bit, that I would be fine, and he would take his time and walk me through it. He had very cold hands. He gripped the inside of my thigh very hard. And all you can feel was the biopsies that the internal scraping that just never seemed to end. It was very hard to go through. I didn't want to go back.
Special Agent Tamika Williams.
Okay. I hate to pause again, but I don't know, man. It feels like if you've never been through it, I don't think you really know what that experience is like. So therefore, can you really talk somebody through it if you've never been through something like that? Like, for instance, right? For those who were born female who have to go see an OBGYN, you had that experience of being there and being seen in a procedure going on. That's a procedure that I will never experience, that I have no knowledge of, right? I guess I can, let me see, what's the best equivalent for that? It's like, I hate saying this, but it's like being kicked. It's like being kicked in the berries for men. Like, do you know what that, like, you know it hurts, but do you know the extent, the intensity, the type of pain that is associated with it? Like, do you know, like, even males in the chat, y'all know, even just a slight, like if somebody throws your keys and it lands in your lap, even if it's like a little, like just that much, it's like, oh, like I'm just being real. And that's something that someone born female will never know. And so we can't expect them to know that. So I'm saying that for a male OBGYN who's never had to be in stirrups and have a procedure done on him, it's like, wouldn't it be best to at least have a female there who's been through the experience that is also a medical professional next to you. And it's not necessarily, and you may not be trying anything, but it's about the empathy that is necessary when you're going through something like that, and having the compassion and knowing what it's like. Because if you have someone who knows what it's like that's there, maybe they can also tell you, hey, you may want to ease up, or hey, you may want to do that. Like, for instance, run your hands under some damn hot water, bruh. Yeah, I mean, it's weird, man. It's called guidance. And just because you have a degree in something doesn't mean you don't necessarily need guidance in certain areas. I'm sorry, I'm going off on a tangent, but I'm just thinking about this now.
With Health and Human Services. The date is October 28th, 2019. Time is 4 p.m. Beginning recording for HHS case number 318-00251.
Nice to see you, sir. It's my partner, Tamika Williams, with the Department of Health and Human Services. Hopefully, we're not interrupting your practice. That's okay. I got a patient. That's cool. That's no problem. Okay. Well, actually, why we're here is we received a complaint regarding some of your billings and services that are provided, and we need to talk to you about that to try to resolve this issue. So we do need a few minutes of your time. Is that something you help us with? Okay, great.
I'm Beth Usey, and I'm an assistant U.S. attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia. When I first came on the case, I understood that there had been allegations, and particularly that there was a hospital worker employee who had made an anonymous tip to the FBI in Norfolk about Dr. Perwaiz possibly doing unnecessary gynecological surgeries on patients.
And that's when the FBI started looking into him. And they spent nearly a year investigating Dr. Perwaiz. And they started getting medical records from inside his practice, from some of his employees. And they started talking to patients. And they started talking to other employees. And that's when they realized that they had a real big problem on their hand.
I had been going to him for less than 2 years when I started realizing, for lack of a better term, he was surgery happy. It seemed like every time I turned around, he was wanting to perform more surgery. He told me.
Okay, so I'm going to be honest with you. How do hospitals and doctors make a lot of money? Elective surgery. Elective surgery is the money maker. And this is one of the reasons why I want to get into this. Because if you are trying to make as much money as possible, because people, when they talk about, oh, doctors make a lot of money, they're really pointing to the surgeons. It could be a cardiologist, a cardiac surgeon. It could be a neurosurgeon, right? It could be cardiothoracic. It could be orthopedic surgeon. It could be surgeries, general surgery. It could be different surgeons, plastic surgeons. It could be different surgeons, right? But the thing is that the elective surgeries make money. And so a doctor that's surgery happy is because he saw that check. And so as he's examining those patients, he keeps thinking about that check. This is what happens when your health is tied to profit. Let's continue.
That I needed surgery to remove the cysts because, they were growing rapidly. And me at that time, I didn't know that women form cysts and usually they go away on their own. You don't need surgery to remove them. But he was very persistent on me getting surgery to get them removed.
Did you ever wonder, though, why
you're having so many surgeries?
Yeah, at one point I started to wonder about it. I started to get very scared to see any doctors. I started to get depressed because I was like, I'm young and I keep getting all these surgeries, and most of them was like on my stomach and stuff like that, and I didn't like it.
I never questioned anything he told me up until probably a year and a half ago. He suggested that I have a hysterectomy.
I was very, very upset that I had procedures done at such an early age that should have never been done.
You have to wonder why.
Yeah, absolutely. Why? Why was the question is will always be there. Nobody would never answer that.
When you look at his career here in Hampton Roads, 40 years, we can speculate on where things went wrong or how long he's been doing this for. But when you start to look at some of the red flags, you start to really get a good picture of maybe how long he has been doing this for.
Sounds like it's your belief that he knew exactly what he was doing, taking advantage of dozens of women.
I believe that he knew what he was doing.
Why do you think he was doing surgeries on Saturdays?
To slide under the radar.
Why was nothing ever done?
Things were said, and they were reported, but nobody did anything about it because he was a large moneymaker for the hospital.
Where's the emotion coming from?
Just bringing back feelings and knowing there's still anger here, that nobody listened. Nobody listened. I wasn't the only one. And I wasn't the only one that raised the alarm. And nobody did anything. And so many other women and children have suffered because of this man. And I don't understand why nothing was ever done.
Nothing was ever done because there was money to be made. Nothing was ever done because there was money to be made. And so I think that's why there's so many people that are constantly going through unnecessary surgeries, unnecessary procedures. And then we also got to talk about how there are some people who may not get the necessary surgery because of health insurance not wanting to pay for it. It just, you have both variables. So I want to share this as well. And so this is an article from the Atlanta Black Star that I want to share with you all, because I think this is also deeply important. So this came out a few weeks ago. It says he was very convincing. Over 600 mostly Black women sterilized and cut open for no reason. Lawsuit claims now Virginia hospital faces $6 billion lawsuit. So this is why I first heard about this. And this story is over 5 years old, by the way, guys. More than 600 women who claimed that they were subject to medically unnecessary surgeries, including C-sections and hysterectomies, over a decade by now imprisoned OBGYN doctor, are suing a Virginia hospital and its top executives for $6 billion. Now, one of the things that I think is important to point out is that, God, I say from the 60s, probably from the 70s and 80s and even into the 90s, a lot of women were getting C-sections to give birth. A lot of women. They were doing way too many unnecessary C-sections. They were basically doing C-sections instead of having a woman push the baby out. And now science is now catching up and going, wait, it's actually healthier for a woman to push the baby out rather than have a C-section. Because recovery for a regular birth is 2 days, 3 days. C-section take weeks to heal. And so because C-sections make money, well, OBGYNs would make a ton of money by just doing a C-section instead. And so, yeah, that was a big thing. How they were doing unnecessary C-sections. C-sections were only supposed to have been necessary in emergency situations, but it became routine. I think I may have been a C-section birth. Maybe. I can't remember. But a lot of kids were born via C-section, and it was not completely necessary. Let's move on. It says the lawsuit filed on December 29th at Chesapeake City Circuit Court and obtained by Atlantic Black Star alleges that the Chesapeake Regional Medical Center negligently provided surgical privileges to gynecologist Perwaiz, despite numerous warnings from staff and insurance providers about his reckless practices that compromise patient safety. It says plaintiffs, most of whom are Black, are each seeking $10 million in damages. They accuse the hospital and its current CEO, James Reese Jackson, and former senior executives enabling Perwaiz to perform unnecessary, harmful, invasive, unlawful, and life-altering gynecological medical procedures on them and other women for nearly a decade at Chesapeake Regional Medical Center, despite repeated reports and clear evidence of Perwaiz's prior misconduct in his obstetrics and gynecology practice. So he was reported repeatedly over years, and they still said, let him go. Because he makes them money. Let's be real here. Let's call a thing a thing. I'm going to keep it 100 with you. People in top positions will look the other way if they can make more money for it. That's just the nature of the game in capitalism. They're willing to, they treat it, like it's just the cost of doing business. Oh, you're sterilized now? You can't have kids? I'm sorry, that's just the cost of doing business. Now, watch my next golf swing. I'm on the 11th hole now. And so they don't care. And this is predominantly working class and particularly Black women that are being treated this way. And you want to know why? Because they don't care. And especially if they're mostly Black, guess what? That means on the socioeconomic ladder, they are at the bottom, which means that when we hear about stories like this, there's no outrage because it's just like, okay. All right, it's a Black woman, nothing to worry about. Nothing to see here. It's just like how people report, horrible atrocities happening in Africa, and it's just like, oh yeah, that's just Africa. Africa has always been a mess. Not realizing that the perpetrators are imperialist powers. And so it's the same thing in this country. I think it was Levert the Baseman that said, doctors are to Black women what police are to Black men. And that's what makes it sad. Let's continue on. It says Perwaiz, who lost his medical license and was convicted of healthcare fraud in 2020, is currently serving a 59 federal prison sentence for conducting irreversible hysterectomies, improper sterilizations, and other medically unnecessary procedures. He misled women about their health, telling some women they had cancer when they did not, and had others sign consent forms for procedures when they were under anesthesia. That's like having somebody sign a legal document when they're drunk. They don't have all their faculties right. They cannot make a legal and life-altering decision while under the influence. And yet this dude was having women sign contracts under anesthesia. That is predatory. That is obscene. That is morally bankrupt. And you mean to tell me this guy's been doing this for 40 years? You know why he did it for 40 years? Because people look the other way. They looked the other way. And it was easier to look the other way because a lot of the victims were black. Or if not black, they were working class or poor. And so who cares about a working class or black or poor woman? Why the hell do you think Jeffrey Epstein was able to get away with what he got away with? Because most, if not almost every single one of them white girls that he decided to do horrible things with were poor or working class white girls. Look, a lot of them were from Palm Beach, not West Palm Beach, but Palm Beach. And so they were across the bridge in the working class and working poor areas. And Jeffrey Epstein sniffed them out and got him over there. And then he did what he did. Same thing. They don't care about you. They only care about what they can get out of you. And so if it meant unnecessary surgeries, and if it means that you can never have kids, even if you're in your 20s, oh, well, I guess that's the cost of doing business. Welcome to capitalism, baby. Chantel Boone, who was among 94 additional women who joined the lawsuit last week, said she received an unnecessary hysterectomy from Perwaiz in 2017. It left her unable to have any more children and forced her into early menopause in her early 30s. Boone, who was originally went to Perwaiz to report stomach pain, found out her uterus was removed after visiting another doctor. The stomach pain turned out to be caused by a hernia. My God. My God. Let me see if I can play this.
No, I do not have a uterus. And I found all that out, later going to another physician. Oh, you don't have a uterus. Oh, that's what he did. Okay.
What kinds of treatment or medical procedures did you receive from him?
He gave me multiple annual examinations. He gave me a DNC that led me to believe that I needed emergency surgery, which led to a hysterectomy.
So you received an unnecessary hysterectomy from him?
Correct.
What happened after that?
What happened after that, I immediately, early 30s, went into straight menopause. Night sweats, hormonal mood swings, just feeling depressed, and I lost my husband. So when you think about starting over, I don't have that option to do so if I wanted to. I went in for him. I did complain that I had stomach issues that I later found out was just a hernia.
Let's continue on. This part here is the part that is horrible. I lost my husband. So when you think about starting over, I don't have that option if I wanted to. What if she didn't have kids with her husband, but then she was trying to find somebody else, and then she wanted to, then she found someone else and got married and was deeply in love with and wanted to have kids with, but she can't because a doctor unnecessarily removed her uterus. She didn't have stomach pains because her uterus was bad. It was because she had a hernia. And yet, Perwaiz decided to remove it. He probably saw the hernia, but he could just say, it's your uterus. We got to remove it. Awful, awful things. Plaintiff Jacinta Holloway, a mother of 7 in Portsmouth, told the New York Times that Perwaiz induced labor in her 4 times, resulting in all 4 of her newborns spending time in intensive care and experiencing developmental delays. When she went into labor with twins in 2011, she said the doctor performed a C-section and tubal ligation that sterilized her without her consent or knowledge. Perwaiz operated on her repeatedly over a 6-year period, falsely telling her that she had fibroids and stomach cancer. He removed her uterus and did abdominal surgery, leaving her with large scar on her belly and chronic pain that limits her mobility. So he disabled women. Disabled them. And Holloway said, he made me feel very comfortable, like I was in good hands. When he told you that you had to have surgery, he said, here, Dr. Pete will take care of you. He was very convincing. Many of Dr. Perwaiz's patients had babies who were admitted to the neonatal intensive care unit in disproportionate numbers, according to a federal criminal indictment charging the hospital with healthcare fraud. It was filed on January 8th. So he was also endangering babies, inducing labor before the baby was fully developed, because the body typically is like works in such a way where, yeah, it is, you don't necessarily have the baby at the point where it's exactly 9 months. It could be 9 months and 5 days, 9 months and 6 days, 9 months and 10 days. It could be damn near close to 10 months. But the thing is, it's like, maybe the body still is like having to work on some things before the baby fully comes out. And you saw Miss Holloway, kids have had developmental delays and all that. My God, my God. So I'm not going to read the entire article, but this is exactly why it is important that we focus on the healthcare aspect, especially in regards to not just having more doctors, but also having a system where we do not have our health tied to profit. Because then it makes you wonder, are some of these doctors in it just to be doctors, or already in it just for the money? And while, yes, there are many doctors who are in it because they actually love being a doctor, there are some, well, they may have gotten into it for the right reasons, but then they stuck around for the wrong ones. And so I also want to read this to you guys as well, because I think this is also really important. Because this is actually, and it really solidifies what I've been trying to say. And this is actually out of the National Institute of Health. Says, do the poor sue more? A case control study of malpractice claims and socioeconomic status. So it says, the objective is to evaluate whether socioeconomic status is associated with risk of malpractice claims, particularly among those who have suffered medical injury. All right, so results. We found that poor patients and uninsured patients were significantly less likely to file malpractice claims, which also requires a lawyer and requires court fees and costs. By the way, which also costs money that we don't have. After controlling for the severity of medical injury, among patients who suffered medical injury, the elderly were also less likely to file claims. Gender and race were not independently associated with risk of malpractice claims. The conclusion: poor and underinsured patients are significantly less likely to sue for malpractice. Even after controlling for the presence of medical injury, fear of malpractice risk should not be a significant factor in the decision to serve the poor. Tort reforms that would protect physicians who serve the medically indignant from malpractice suits may not be warranted. Now, I will say this: if poor and uninsured patients are significantly less likely to sue for malpractice, that also could mean that poor and uninsured patients are more likely to receive unnecessary procedures and have procedures done wrong because of their socioeconomic status, because they're not seen and treated with as much care, because the risk of ever being sued is much lower. And so if you have that risk of being sued that's much lower, then somebody like a Dr. Perwaiz would do the unnecessary hysterectomies, would do the unnecessary sterilizations and surgeries. Because are they going to be able to sue him? No, they don't got the money to do it. So he can get to make his money, do those surgeries, and then walk away scot-free. Remember, he's been doing that for 40 years, which means he was right at the cusp of retiring. And since he was right at the cusp of retiring, basically, he almost got away with it. Almost. But thankfully, some people spoke out. And so this is why I talk about we need a fully nationalized healthcare system. Because if you take the incentive of making more money or profit based off of the health of people, then it goes from, oh, I just want to be a doctor partially because it makes good money, to I want to be a doctor and help people and save lives and improve lives. And that's it. And this is not saying that doctors should work for free or not get paid a great, wonderful wage. No. In fact, I think that doctors should be paid very well. On top of that, I also think that doctors get overworked too. Remember, one of my comrades is a doctor, a physician, and they get overworked, especially in the hospital system. So number one, they should not be worked as hard as they are. And number two, they should be paid extremely well for the work that they do. But it should not be tied to profit. It should be tied to the fact that they're doing that work that is life-saving and life-sustaining and improving the quality of life of patients. Because ultimately, it should be about the patients first, foremost, and only, not about profit. Because as long as we keep a capitalist system like this going around, you will continue to have more men like Perwaiz harming people, especially in the working class. All right, everybody, go ahead and give a like to the stream. Thank you very much for that. Let's get into some of the comments, and then we will move on to the next story. I'm going to check the Kick chat really quick. Let's see. Do we have any gifted subs on Kick? Looks like we're good so far. Okay. Gravy. All right. So let's get into, let's see if we have any Rumble rants. Why in the world? Okay, I was about to start complaining. All right, we're good. No Rumble rants right now, but we do have a few people watching on Rumble side. Hey, Rumble, good to see y'all. All right. Okay, dokie, Smokey. Let me see. So, Dystopia says a lot of doctors got crazy God complexes too. Got to watch out for that. It's unfortunate, but yes, it does happen. Yes. Sip Sauce says, hello, JB. Hello, Sip Sauce. Sip Sauce. I don't know why I said it like that, but it just sounds good. Sip Sauce. We have coffee. We'll talk. All right. Rondo says, as they should, and continues with, C-sections are major operations, weeks, months, sometimes it never really heals. Yeah. It is something. Yeah, it's a lot, man. I think that they're not allowing the body to do what it does naturally. And that's what makes it so difficult, because it's just like you're doing something, like if it's an emergency C-section that's necessary, or they need to have a C-section because it threatens the life of the baby or the mother, that C-section is absolutely necessary, then yes. But if it's not, because the thing is, like, there is medications, there is epidurals, there are things like that, right? And that particular part of the body, I have to be careful with how I say things, but that particular part of the female body, it is designed, it is developed to give birth and then go back to the way it was. You know what I mean? And so I think it's important that we continuously like remind ourselves that no, the body does what it needs to. And if there's any risk, then that's when something like a C-section should be considered. Yeah. Human Rights for All says, for the love of money in one state. Yes, absolutely. Unfortunately. Let me see. Terry says, greetings, JB and comrades. Good to see you, Terry. Let me see here. Learning to Live says, truly nothing is worse than the human. I'm not sure exactly what you're saying or meaning there, but thank you very much. Therev, Joe Blank. Good to see you, Joe, in the chat. All right. Audrey says, I voted for a fellow who's found liable for sexual abuse because he promised cheaper gas and groceries on day one. It's day 414. Grocery prices are higher and gas is far more expensive. Oops. All right. Thank you very much for that. Let me see. Roger says, since slavery, Black women's bodies gave birth to, as well as advance the OGBYN field. Since there's no anesthesia, but stereotype as having higher threshold for pain, unfortunately, it was involuntary. Yeah. And that's something that, in fact, the person who's considered the father of gynecology, he operated on female chattel slaves without anesthesia. Yeah. And that's part of our history here in the United States. And let's not forget a lot of the human experimentation that happened. I'm not just talking about Tuskegee experiments. I'm talking about human experimentation on inmates in prison who were Black, particularly male and female. Yeah. A lot of people don't talk about that either. Let me see. Edward says, I used to work in a hospital and doctors get away with murder because the administrators look at them as moneymakers. Doctors are considered untouchable. Yeah, unfortunately, and just like with every industry, there are ones that are good, there's ones that are bad. Unfortunately, the ones that are bad are the loudest ones in the room and the ones that get the most attention. And the good ones you really don't hear about, you know. Let me see. All right. And then Learning to Live says, meaning the way terrible humans treat others in life, truly nothing is worse than the human. Sad. It's very sad. Thank you very much for that. All righty. Let's get into the next chat. Sorry, not just chat. What am I talking about? Before we get into the next segment, we are going to... Oh, wait. JB. Uh-oh. I had... Oh, I know what it is. Perfection. Alrighty. Sorry, guys. I gotta get my bearings straight. Okay. All right. So next one thing we're going to do is we're going to thank the patrons on Patreon, and then we're going to get on to the next segment. All right. So thank you so very much to all the patrons on Patreon. You guys make this possible, and I would not be able to have this channel without you guys doing the damn thing and making sure that I am able to do this on a week-to-week and almost daily basis. So here are the tiers. All right, we have Mega Jaybefaunters, Super Duper Jaybefaunters, Super Jaybefaunters, Jaybefaunters. Then we have Comrade, Solidarity, and JB members. And then thank you to all future new members. Without you guys, I would not be able to do this work. You guys can also, if you like to, there are super chats, there's memberships, as well as I have a Venmo in the bottom in the description of every video. So thank you very much to everybody for contributing to the channel. It means the world to me. All right. Okay, let's go back to the thumbnail and let's get on to the next story. So, of course, we talked about this doctor sterilizing Black women, sterilizing working class women. So we're going to get into the next story. We're going to be talking about workers in danger and this whole driver's license scandal that is happening as we speak. And this one is getting a lot of news in the rounds today that I really want to get into, because I mean, honestly, this is dangerous, because this sets a dangerous precedent for many people. So, okay. All right, so we're going to get into this. So we're going to be getting into now. Notice of termination of employment. Reasons? You're trans. Driver's licenses and state IDs are not just for driving. And state IDs aren't just to say, oh, you live in the state. They are proof. Proof of your residence. Proof to be able to get certain services. Many different things within a particular state that you live in. Unfortunately, for some people, their licenses are now being invalidated because of one thing, which is the sex identification marker on the IDs. And so let's get into the story. And this is happening to workers who happen to be trans. So let's get into the story. I've been meaning to get into this for the last couple of weeks, and I'm glad to finally get into it, because this is a story about the class war. Let's get into it.
Transgender people in Kansas are suing the state after a new law essentially canceled their driver's licenses. This sweeping new bill was passed by the state's Republican supermajority over the veto of the Democratic governor there. It forces trans people to use public restrooms that might not conform with their gender identity, and lets any citizens sue someone they think is trans for $1,000 if they violate that rule. But the driver's licenses are at the heart of this legal battle, with Kansas now requiring that trans people only have licenses that match their sex at birth. The plaintiffs allege that the state deprived them of their ability to operate their cars without any notice or opportunity to be heard. Our team is out to the state's governor and representatives in the Republican legislature, but has not heard back. Kate Chappell is a reporter for our Chicago station and is joining.
So let's stop there for a second. When you go to apply for a job, what are the two forms of ID that they ask you for? Typically, it's a driver's license and social security card, right? Or passport, right? But if that license is invalid, therefore, you don't have those two forms of ID, you can't get a job. When you need to open a bank account, two forms of ID are necessary. If you get pulled over by the police, maybe just for a ticket, if that ID is invalid, then therefore they might take you in and put you in jail. So this has larger implications. Whenever you go to get an apartment or buy a home, what do they need? They need that identification. Let's say you're trying to get government services. They need that identification. What happens when you're trying to go to school? They need that identification. So many different things that a license is needed for, and yet everybody's talking about, oh, well, it's just driver's license, so it means you can't drive on the road. But this goes further beyond just being able to drive on the road. This encompasses the daily life of people who are workers. And so I think this is why this is so important. Let's continue on.
Now, Kate, talk us through the allegations laid out here in this lawsuit against the state. I understand you're talking with one of the lawyers here.
Yasmin, that's right. I spoke with an attorney for the ACLU who tells me they filed late last night seeking a temporary injunction for now, eventually a permanent one. They call this law unconstitutional, saying it violates guarantees of personal autonomy, privacy, and equality. It was filed on behalf of two transgender men in Kansas who say they either have to drive while they're at work or in order to get to work. They filed.
Work. This isn't just something woke. This isn't just identity politics. This isn't identity politics at all. This is really the intersection of identity and class coming together on a particular group of people. And that's why this is so important. And so now, what if you have a truck driver that's trans? What if you have somebody that drives a bus that's trans? And here's the crazy part. There is being this law created for a group of people that only consists of less than 1% of the entire U.S. population. There are literally more redheads than trans people in this country, in this world. There's more redheads than them. And yet, this is what we're focused on. We're not focused on making a livable wage for all workers. We're not focusing on housing for all these workers. I'm talking about all workers. We're not focused on giving universal health care to everybody. Hell, we're not focused on trying to clean up our environment, or we're not trying. It's like, why are we doing this? What is this about? The priorities is always on something that is culture warish, but then that culture war ends up affecting the material realities of a specific group of people that's not harming anybody. It's crazy on its face. One of the biggest crimes that exists in the United States is wage theft. And yet they're more focused on trans people. They're more focused on whether it's an M or an F on your driver's license. They're more focused on that. I'm worried about groceries. I don't know about you, but I gotta eat. I know I'm big boned, but stay with me here. But so many people, they need to eat, right? Food is getting expensive. Y'all seeing the gas prices because these megalomaniacs are literally trying to bomb Iran. They're trying to do regime change and get oil that doesn't belong to them. And yet, are we sitting here talking about what's between a person's legs? And whether that's reflected on the outside or not? And then we're going to condemn them to a life of poverty and homelessness unless they particularly conform to our particular standards. But is it hurting us? That's like being that little kid. You ever been around little kids and then the little kid is playing with another kid's toy, but another kid whose toy belongs to, they take their toy away and they start playing with their own toy and they don't want the other kid to play with it. And then they come to you, they're like, they won't let me play with it. And I'm like, but that's their toy. And then they get upset because it's their toy. This is the logic I feel like we're dealing with right now. Let's worry about something that's way more costly to everybody. Why are we so focused on people who have a different gender identity and are expressing it more fully outward in their outward appearance? Why are we so focused on that? I know some people are going to disagree with me, but here's the thing. Number one, sex and gender are two different things. Because if you say, "Oh, I'm attracted to females," then all right, then let me bring in a kangaroo, and I'll be like, "Hey, it's a female. You're attracted?" You know what I mean? It's like people get the two completely. They don't understand, and then it's not even trans people who are actually this in the discussion rooms with this. It's crazy to me. Anyway, let's continue.
Under pseudonyms in order to protect their identities. And they say this new law puts them in immediate danger of civil and criminal penalties with no notice, and that only a judge blocking the law would prevent so-called irreparable harm. And they say this new law essentially outs them against their will every time they have to use the bathroom or show an ID in public. Here's what that lawyer had to say.
I think that puts trans people in an impossible position, right? They can use the restroom that matches their gender and risk a lawsuit like this. They can use the restroom that matches their sex assigned at birth and also risk getting sued because someone thinks they're in the wrong restroom. Or they can not be in society at all and choose to not go places where they might need to use a restroom with other people.
Let me ask you all this. Do you guys remember that story of that black woman that was murdered because some dude thought she was trans? She was a cisgender black woman, and they thought, and this grotesque-looking man thought that she was trans and murdered her. You remember how many times they actually talked bad about people like Serena Williams and said she looks like a man? right? Remember how bad they talked about Michelle Obama and saying, oh my God, I think she's secretly a man. You know, this is going to blow back on first, right? It's going to blow back on black women first. I hate to put it that way, but that's the way it is, because black women's womanhood and femininity is always in question in a white supremacist system. And they will use this culture war to go up against black women.
And transgender Kansans with those now invalid licenses will need to surrender them and get a new one reissued that matches their biological sex. Yasmin?
Kate Chappell, thank you.
We thank you for watching, and remember.
So that's part of it. But I want to share this with you guys too, because this person makes a lot of great points. I'm going to share this with you guys. So let's go. Let me make sure we refresh real quick. So, all right.
Besides the deaths, the state of Kansas has joined several other states in their sick mission to make the lives of trans people exponentially more difficult. Following the passing of Senate Bill 244, trans people are required to use the bathroom that aligns with their assigned sex at birth in universities, government buildings, etc. So essentially, if I'm ever in the state of Kansas, I have to use the men's bathroom, which is something that's not happening. And they've also implemented like these bounty hunter provisions where individual citizens can sue the suspected trans person for fines of up to $1,000 for simply existing in the space. I suspect.
So hang on. Let me ask y'all something. Men in the chat, if you go to the bathroom and you see her in the bathroom, are you going to think, oh, well, that's a man? My first thought would be like, ma'am, are you lost? Or is the women's bathroom packed so you don't have time to wait? I mean, hey, if you got to go, you got to go, but the women's room is over there. And I have seen some big, burly, hairy trans men. And I'm like, would you want to use the bathroom with them? Okay. If that's what you want, okay. All right. But I'm just letting y'all know, because then this can actually create a quagmire that's even worse. But my point is not even talking about the bathroom thing. This is more about the working class people who are being harmed by this simply because they're living their life in the gender that they identify as. And this is why it is so egregious, because number one, if someone who was born male and they transition to being a woman, right? Is that hurting you? Like, is it materially hurting you? Is it hurting you financially? Is it hurting you medically? Is it harming you as far as within the criminal justice system? Is it harming you, you know, in different ways that are tangible in your life? Because I have yet to hear anything like that. Now, you may have anecdotal evidence of somebody trans doing something harmful, but that is anecdotal evidence. That is not necessarily data that proves that this is the agenda of every single trans person. And then on top of it, everybody wants to talk about trans women going into women's restrooms, but nobody ever wants to talk about trans men going into men's restrooms. And if we're supposed to be, oh, we got to protect the women, then what about the trans men coming into men's restrooms? My only concern is that if I'm standing at the urinal, don't talk to me. That's my only concern. If you stay quiet and I stay quiet, we cool. And also, look, Try not to eat no Taco Bell before going into that bathroom because everybody make noise. But that's my only concern. Outside of that, I don't care. Who cares? It's just weird to me. And this is affecting the working class people.
That this is going to disproportionately affect and inconvenience cis women as a result of transvestigation in bathrooms, because as I've said before, running into a trans person in a random bathroom throughout the United States is like finding a needle in the haystack. Yeah. Now, what I think is most concerning about this bill is that they're not only not allowing trans people to like update their gender markers on their driver's license and their birth certificate, they're also invalidating legally obtained documentation through previous administrations. So say you're a trans person who got all of your documentation legally changed in the state of Kansas back in 2015 before this sick manufactured culture war began living rent-free in the heads of these transphobes, right? They're asking that you surrender your documentation, and they're going to issue incorrect documentation, or they're going to forcefully do it. And my first thoughts, and I'm sure that you guys are thinking the same thing, is questions of legality, right? Like, how can you revoke or deny someone's documentation that was legally obtained during a previous administration? Like, it has to be illegal, right? Unfortunately, we'd be wrong. It seems like they're setting up to go through like every single driver's license or every single person in the database who has ever requested a gender change and switching it back, and they're well within legal parameters. All hope is not lost though, because there are very well established organizations like Lambda Legal and ACLU Kansas Division, the HRC, Loud Light. They are actively advocating against and fighting this bill. So if you are a trans Kansan and you don't have the resources to get out of the state, look to these organizations for updates and legal counsel. And listen, y'all, in this current political and social climate, it is terrible for all trans Americans, regardless of where you reside, right? And I do think that eventually the pendulum is going to swing back, but this should be even more motivation for you to get out there and advocate for your loved ones, your family members, anyone who wants to see the betterment and liberation of the trans community, to get out there and vote in November. Because I have a video coming up about the potential election interference that this administration is planning. And if they're successful, we can be up under Republican rule for the next 50 years. And I don't want that. So keep an eye out for that video, y'all, because a lot of the things that this current administration is doing behind the scenes politically are egregious. All that in a bag of chips being said, feel free to comment your thoughts down below. Comment.
I will issue one correction. It's not just Republicans. There's a lot of Democrats that would capitulate to Republicans on this as well. Doesn't matter. That's why both parties are trash. Now, I get that this person, I think her pronouns are she, but I think that she's trying to mitigate the harm. The problem is that Democrats aren't interested in mitigating harm, because the harm is what helps make them money under Act Blue. And so that's why I think this is important to talk about, especially in regards to what is being done to trans people. Let me go to this here. Here's the article that was talking about it. It says Kansas informs trans residents their driver's license become invalid on Thursday. So let me see here. So it says, please note that the legislator did not include a grace period for updating credentials. That means once the law is officially enacted, your current credentials will be invalid immediately, and you may be subject to additional penalties if you are operating a vehicle without a valid credential. So it says some transgender Kansans interviewed by the Stars said they have received the letters. Others who have changed their gender markers on their driver's license, state IDs, and birth certificates said they had not yet received notification from KDOR as of Wednesday evening. So here's the thing. Like, imagine you're on your way to work and you get stopped by police, and then they say, oh, your license is revoked or your license is no longer valid. And so now you can't even get to work because of this. She said, one transgender woman said, I don't want to get a misdemeanor just for trying to get to work. It says, I'm salaried I'm not working hourly, and not everyone has that same privilege as me. So she got approval for the work for her boss remotely until she figures out how to drive legally in Kansas. Pursuant to the new law, if the gender sex indication on the face of your current credentials does not match your sex assigned at birth, you are directed to surrender your current credential to the Kansas Division of Vehicles. So here's my thing. As far as whether you're born male or female, like when it comes to your identification, I think it's for what you present as. But the problem is that for medical reasons. Now, if you want to talk about medically, well, that's between the person's them and their doctor, right? Like if a man comes in and, that man has a uterus, well, then of course the doctor needs to know that that man was born female, right? But if you're just, going for a job and you present as a man, and if it says F under sex, that also gives people license to discriminate and say, well, they just weren't right for the job. When in reality, they looked at the license and saw that they were trans and they rejected them based on that. So it's kind of an underhanded, sneaky way to also discriminate people based on their gender identity, while also making sure that people who are trans are economically disadvantaged. And so this is literally going to affect workers who are trans. What if they need to get a loan? What if they're trying to start a business and they need to use their ID? What if they're trying to buy a home? What if they're trying to get an apartment? Hell, even if they're trying to buy alcohol, you know what I mean? Excuse me. This is the part that I think people don't consider. They think it's just an identity issue, when in reality, it is not just identity, it's economics as well. And so stories like this, man, it scares me, because could this be expanded even further? Could this be expanded even further to discriminate against other people? So this is why we should have solidarity with all workers, because a strike against them is a strike against all. Go ahead and give a like to the stream. I know some people are going to be divided on this topic. I know, but I had to bring it up because this is definitely an issue where class and identity intersect, and I had to talk about it, man, because this is important, man. Very important. All right, let me check the Kick chat to see if we have any gifted subs there. All right. We're good. We're golden. Living my life like it's golden. I'm taking my freedom, putting it in my car. Sorry. Baby, don't play with it. Sorry. I'm getting into my Jill Scott right now. All right. Excuse me. Y'all, I'm still sick. Still got this congestion, but I'm getting over it slowly but surely. Slowly but surely. All right. Let's get into the chat. All right. Hey, Professor Zinkus, good to see you. He said, thank you for talking about this. Thank you for being in the chat and supporting. Appreciate it. Edward says, when you apply for a job, you fill out an application and you will see a statement about by law, you can't be denied because of race, gender, sexual orientation. Basically said it's discrimination. Yes. However, if it's not explicit, if they can't point to it, it's harder to prove. So let's say they get your ID, or they get your ID and things like that, and then they see that you're trans. Well, then they could come up with a reason to let you go, and they can say whatever it is. You can suspect that it is, but they'll be quick to say, well, no, it's not because of blah, 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 blah. Roger says, sounds like discrimination to me, JB. Yeah. Anthony Zinka says, my friend is non-binary trans, assigned female at birth. They went to a women's room at an airport, and a woman screamed, and them got security to have them removed. It's ridiculous. Yeah. And the funny thing is, if they were born female at birth, but they present masculine, and then they go inside of a women's restroom, and they are masculine presenting, you said go to the bathroom where you're assigned sex at birth to. So guess what? A lot of bathrooms are going to start looking co-ed. That's exactly what's going to happen. Bathrooms are going to look co-ed. You know what I mean? Look, don't be surprised if you see a fine-looking chick with a tube top on and skin-tight jeans, and she's in kitten heels. Not kitten heels. Kitten heels are terrible. But she's in stilettos, and she walking out the men's restroom because by law she had to go there. And you would have never thought that she was trans, but guess what? She is. And you can't tell because you don't see an Adam's apple. And they petite and short. You know what I mean? And they're expressing their gender identity fully. And so then you're going to be like, wait, hold up. So, of course, you're going to look in there and be like, ma'am, are you lost? I would. Jacqueline says, also, where do these transgender people living in Kansas get their operations? Like I'm trying to point out if they got their operations in Kansas. Some people may have gotten gender affirming surgery there. You know, or maybe they moved to Kansas after getting their surgery. They don't maybe have to have lived there. And maybe they moved to Kansas for economic reasons because it's cheaper to live there. So they probably got their gender affirming care there. But then they also probably go see the doctor to be able to get their medications for their HRT, right? And those doctors still operate within the state for HRT. Because guess what? Here's the thing, right? Whether you're on estrogen or testosterone, guess what? People who get estrogen and testosterone are also cisgender too. Hell, Halle Berry talked about this, about how a lot of women who are of a certain age get hormone replacement therapy as well. How many men, especially over 40, that get prescribed testosterone by their doctors? Men, cisgender men. And guess what? Trans men also get testosterone too. So, that's not a great indicator. Because you could be dealing with a trans man or a cisgender man. Just because you have a prescription for testosterone doesn't necessarily mean that the person is trans. I'm sorry. Bryce says, I mind my business, JB. I remember women coming into the men's bathroom and using it. It's wild over here to see in Vegas. Look, bro, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. Just make sure that they didn't go to one of those cheap buffets before coming into the bathroom, because you may want to plug your ears, brother. Because no matter the gender, no matter the sex, them cheap buffets, they will tear your stomach up. I mean, I'm not mad at this one. Roger said, just mandate businesses make more unisex individual restrooms used for just one person at a time. I mean, all right, cool. I actually think it's more comfortable that way. Let me see. Vic Adams says, thank you, JB. Thank you very much. Let me see. Humpala. Whenever I see that name, it makes me giggle. The 12-year-old in my head, the 12-year-old me in my head giggles whenever I see it. I'm sorry, y'all. Anyway, good to see you. Sean Rocker says, all trans lives matter. Thank you very much for that. Sip Sauce says, hope you get better soon. Thank you very much. I was drinking tea. And you know one thing I do with my tea? I'm not sure if you guys do it, but not only do I do like the honey and lemon, but I also zest the lemon and put lemon zest in my tea. You don't even have to make it anything complex. Just take a vegetable peeler and peel off the surface of the lemon, and you get that zest. You don't even have to cut it up or chop it up or anything. And then when you pour your hot water, it releases the lemon oil as well into the tea, which is really good for you too. And it gives you that more lemon flavor. So you don't just get the tart from the lemon, but the real lemon flavor in there. And I like my tea very lemony. So I that's how I roll. Let me see. Kime says stiletto pumps in the club. Look, y'all better than me, because if my feet ain't comfortable, I ain't getting up for nobody. Nope. All right. Okay, guys. Let's get into the final one. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I gotta talk about this dude. Oh my gosh. I gotta talk about Lindsey. I can't stand his ass. Oh my goodness. Anywho, let's get into the thumbnail, y'all. All right. Okay, we already talked about sterilizing Black women. We already talked about how trans workers are in danger in Kansas, but let's talk about this chaos agent right here. Let's talk about this inflatable fascist. We got to get into this chaos. Let me make sure my stuff is set up, because I really need to make sure that this is set up, because I really just, I want to get through hearing this Joker as quickly as possible. All right. Wait, why didn't it do it? All right, there we go. Lindsey Graham. I'm sorry, guys. I got to talk about him. But Lindsey Graham, Trump's sycophant, neocon, warmongering, just this morally repugnant human being decided to go on Fox News and talk to Maria Bartiromo. Maria, he did. Look, Lindsey and Maria decided to kiki on Fox News. Let me just put it like that. All right. And they decided to kiki over war. I think there's three things that Lindsey Graham probably likes. Is war, sequins, and Judy Garland. That's not in that particular order. But let's get into this because I'm sick and tired of these people. Because between him and Trump, they are literally trying to make sure that we all get destroyed. Let's talk about this. This is going to be a segment of segments, y'all, because I am sick and tired of these warmongering fools. But unfortunately, because I'm in the business of that I'm in, I got to talk about these people. All right, let's go.
Joining me now in the Sunday Morning Futures exclusive is South Carolina Senator Lindsey Graham, the chairman of the Senate Budget Committee, which shapes the overall spending, as well as a member of the Appropriations Committee, which decides how money is actually spent. Senator, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
And I want to get your take on all of this. $1 billion a day. Oil prices up 27% in a week. You've got the president wanting a $1.5 trillion defense budget in 27. The idea that the Pentagon is about to come to you for $50 billion on these strikes to Iran. How are you going to answer?
Best money ever spent. Was it worth to America to take down a religious Nazi regime who's trying to build a nuclear weapon to deliver to America? That's a really good investment. They're going to follow.
Hang on. First of all, let me say this. You want to talk about a religious regime that's trying to get a nuclear weapon. What about a religious regime that already has a nuclear weapon, that already has the world staring down the barrel of a gun? They have over 700 military bases, and they're surrounding some of the poorest nations on earth because they want their resources. And then they have a very ultra religious evangelical regime that oversees the operations in the government, that is owned by big corporations and billionaires who like to commit cannibalism as well as sexual assault, including of minors. And then they also are involved with the mob, allegedly. And they're also allegedly involved in harming people to get them out of the way. Not to mention, whenever the people rise up and try to protest against them, they send an occupied military force to harm them, or maybe even, allegedly, murder them. Wouldn't you say that that's a regime that needs to be stopped? Just asking a question. Asking all them questions, making statements, assuming.
Oh, it's not if the regime falls, it's a matter of when. And you didn't mention today, and nobody has, quite frankly, we now know they had enough 60% enriched uranium to make 11 bombs. What's that worth to America to make sure they don't have 11 bombs?
That's a very specific number. Why 11 bombs? It's kind of funny because it's just like, wait a minute. How long have you guys been saying? How long has Netanyahu been saying Iran is close to having a nuclear bomb within 2 weeks? In 3 weeks, Iran will have a nuclear bomb. In 2 seconds, Iran's about to have a nuclear bomb. Look, they're about to have a nuclear bomb. 30 years later, they don't have anything. And people go, oh, because we didn't allow them. No, if they wanted one, they would have had one already. James, don't go on a tangent. Just let him speak. Let him speak.
America to make sure they don't have 11 bombs. All of this money is to make sure they never go nuclear, they can't hit us with ballistic missiles, and they stop terrorizing the region. When this regime goes down, we're going to have a new Mideast. We're going to make a ton of money. Nobody will threaten the Straits of Hormuz again. But Donald J. Trump saved the world from real chaos. Witkoff, the negotiator, was told by the Iranians openly that they have stockpiled enough 60% enriched uranium, 460 kilograms, to make 11 bombs. Thank God Trump did this. Can you?
No, they didn't. No, they didn't. Lindsey Graham here is lying to you. On top of that, their nuclear program is a civilian nuclear program, meaning that they just want to have nuclear power so they can charge their phones, watch their TV, and play Candy Crush on their tablets. Baby, they ain't concerned with no damn nuclear bombs. And by the way, just so anybody knows, they're doing quite the job that they set out to do on U.S. bases as well as in Tel Aviv without a nuclear bomb. But a lot of people, especially Fox News, ain't showing that. Okay. Let's continue.
Imagine a year from now, what would it cost America if Iran had 11 nuclear bombs to threaten us? They would hold us hostage. We would be held hostage in perpetuity by this terrorist regime. So the money we're spending is a good investment to take down a regime that's been the largest state sponsor of terrorism, has got American blood on its hands. And when this regime falls, it's not if, when, we're going to have a gateway to peace. And the next thing that will happen is Saudi Arabia will recognize Israel. And that will be the biggest change in 2,000 years in the Mideast. And Donald J. Trump is the man to make it all happen. He's the first president in 47 years to call the question on the Iranian regime. They're religious Nazis. We negotiated with them. They would not give up their enriched uranium. They would not pledge to stop making weapons that could hit America. They still fund the proxies. When this regime falls, there'll be no money for Hezbollah, Hamas, and the Houthis. What is that worth? So the money.
Damn. Lindsey Graham should be an OnlyFans model because this, how much butt kissing he's doing is ridiculous. Lord and Lord.
We're spending to take this regime down. It's going to make us safer. It's going to keep them from having nuclear capability down the road. And we will have a new Mideast where we make money. But it ain't about money today.
Wait. You said that twice. Lindsey, girl, you said that twice. You said, oh, we're going to make a lot of money. That's what it's about. Do you want, Lindsey, do you really want me to go into my former evangelical bag? There's a scripture that says, out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. I wonder what that's about. I ain't saying he a gold digger, but he ain't messing with no. Chaos agent. That's exactly what Lindsey Graham is. Because he's performing for money. It's for money. Sorry. I'm allergic to bullshitters. But here's the thing. If Iran actually had a nuclear weapon, would we be where we're at right now as far as going to war with them? I don't see no warplanes flying over North Korea. Do you? I don't see the United States committing mass casualties and bombing all girls' schools in DPRK. Do you? It's as if because North Korea has a nuke that the United States doesn't actually want any smoke from North Korea. But yet they're so willing to go up against Iran. Why is that? And Lindsey Graham is just dancing for Trump. He's dancing for Trump. He's like that Tina Turner song. I'm your private dancer, dancer for money. Do what you want me to do. That's what Lindsey Graham is. He's Trump's private dancer. And it's weird. It's this neocon wet dream that he has for destruction and violence just so he can make a few extra dollars. Lindsey, you don't need to do that. You already make enough money in the Senate to make your sequin dress. Come on, baby. Anyways.
It's about 6 Americans who died in the defense of our country. Now, to our Arab friends.
Wait. Those 6 Americans that died is because you guys decided to go up and start a fight with Iran that was completely unnecessary because they did not have any nuclear weapons. They weren't trying to do a nuclear weapons program because there is a fatwa against having a nuclear weapon that Khamenei said, no, by principle, we shouldn't have any nuclear weapons. And they said that they weren't ever going to develop one, and they didn't want one. But that doesn't mean that they didn't want nuclear power plants in order to be able to have electricity, which is what they were trying to do. And so those American blood, that American blood is on your hands, Lindsey. It's on your hands. It's on Donald Trump's hands. It's on Pete Hegseth's hands. It's on Marco Rubio's hands. It's on Jared Kushner's hands. Are we talk about Jared a little bit? It's on all y'all's hands. It's on Benjamin Netanyahu's hands too. The blood of those Americans are on your hands because guess what? Iran did not start this fight. Y'all did. Y'all sent them into harm's way. Y'all got them killed. This is exactly why they're dead. Because you pushed them into that war zone. You surrounded Iran with those bases. And then you kept pushing them because you wanted to do exactly what you did in 1953 all over again. Because you wanted some puppet to do whatever you said so that you guys can get those oil and resources so y'all can make more money. That's all it's about. Chaos agent. That's all he is.
And you're being hit too. Has any Arab country struck Iran? Now, if you want a treaty with the United States, you need to get in this fight. Now, America's not going to the Mideast just to fight alone. So I'm urging our Arab allies to fight back. You're being hit too. So how does this end? It ends with victory. Donald J.
Hold up. Lindsey Graham is speaking as if Iran's just indiscriminately bombing this neighbors because even though they have nothing to do with it. Oh, baby, they're the ones that allow American bases to be built on their land surrounding Iran. And it was the bases that were hit by Iran in those respective countries. That's what happened. So it's not like, oh my God, Iran's going after civilian populations in Saudi Arabia and Oman. And UAE, no. Iran is not like America. They don't go after civilians. Not like that. And so that's the crazy part, right? And I think it's important that we look at this from a perspective outside of the narrative of what the United States tries to tell us. Let's continue on. So this is lies upon lies.
Trump is going to bring this regime down. It's going to be replaced by something more friendly to the United States. It's going to open up the biggest deal in 2,000 years where Saudi Arabia and Israel not only recognize each other, they will do business. Trump's a man of peace and business. Finally, Venezuela and Iran have 31% of the world's oil reserves. We're going to have a partnership with 31% of the known reserves. This is China's nightmare. This is a good investment, and we should applaud our men and women in the military who are doing something I've never seen done before, decimating a brutal enemy in 9 days.
Really great points all around, Senator. I don't know where to start. Number one, how are you?
Very good. Oh my goodness. Yes, very good, Senator. Yes, absolutely. Girl, bye. This is why corporate media is losing viewers. This is why. We don't need any media outlet that's going to be kissing up to the government. You're supposed to be holding their feet to the fire. Yet Maria Bartiromo she's giving him a foot massage. She's getting out the good oil and she's like, yes, sir, absolutely. Oh, I don't mind the smell. It's okay. Yes, you walked over some dead bodies of children, but it's all right. As long as my contract with Fox News, the check keeps coming. Yeah. Get him some champagne. Oh, gosh. This is why you need to support independent media, because independent media is going to actually call this stuff out. But this is why Maria Bartiromo is actually where she's at in Fox News. This is why.
For decimating a brutal enemy in 9 days.
Really great points all around, Senator. I don't know.
Look at that smile. She's smiling about it. Warmongering. Oh my gosh. We're back in 2003 in Iraq war again.
Points all around, Senator. I don't know where to start. Number one, how are you going to better secure the Strait of Hormuz so that we don't see more spikes in the price of oil? Number two, are you telling us you want the United Arab Emirates and the Saudis to lash out and strike Iran right now?
I want them to get in the fight. We sell them weapons. Iran is striking their country. They have good capability. About the Strait of Hormuz, what if the regime fell? Then you never had anybody in Iran in the future that wants to close the strait. What if you had Iran with people who don't want to build a nuclear weapon to kill us all? What if you had Iran in the future that doesn't support Hezbollah, Hamas, and the Houthis? That's where we're headed. Donald J. Trump is going to bring this terrorist regime down. We're going to have partners in Iran, and we're going to open up a gateway to peace. This won't fix itself. Every other president has talked about doing it. President Trump is in the process of doing it. They're going to lose, and we're going to win. Israel and the United States, you just wait to see what comes in the next 2 weeks.
The next 2 weeks, meaning what?
We're going to blow the hell out of these people. This
Ain't he a piece of work? I know y'all. I know y'all are like, did he just say that? Did he just say that? I'm telling you. Dude just went Queen of Hearts from Alice in Wonderland. Off with his head! Oh my goodness. That's why I say chaos agent.
We're going to blow the hell out of these people. This regime is in a death row now. It is going to be on its knees. It's going to fall. And when it falls, we're going to have peace like no other time. We're going to have prosperity unlike anyone could ever imagine. Peace brings prosperity. You can't do it by talking. The Democrats criticize this operation. They didn't do a damn thing. These men and women in the military should make us all proud.
And they have already. Number 3, real quick, are you going to support the president's request for $1.5 trillion budget defense in 27? And will you respond yes to a potential supplemental defense package of $50 billion from the Pentagon?
Yes to both. We need it. We want the strongest military to end the wars quickly. Look what we're doing here. We've lost 6 soldiers.
Okay, so he said yes to $1.5 trillion in defense spending. That means that's $1.5 trillion that you don't get for housing, healthcare, education. That means that's $1.5 trillion of the money that you are supposedly over as American citizens, as federal dollars, that's not going to make sure that you can afford groceries. That's $1.5 trillion that will make sure that you don't have any type of support when it comes to your electric bill. That's $1.5 trillion that will make sure that you don't have any support when you go to pump the gas inside your car. That's $1.5 trillion that you don't have that's going to make sure that your job still isn't stiffing you with your hours or how much you get on your paycheck. It's $1.5 trillion that's going to make sure that we still are subject to Israel. $1.5 trillion. And then an additional $50 billion on top of that. So that is the words of a chaos agent. Let's end it. Let's finish up.
God bless them. We're devastating the enemy. I'm not looking for a fair fight. If we get in a fight, I want to win it. I want to win it quick. I'm in Miami. You see this hat? Free Cuba. Stay tuned. The liberation of Cuba is upon us. It's
free Cuba from whom, though? Because they had their revolution. And if you really want to free Cuba, then you would end the sanctions, the blockades, and the embargoes and let them just be. If you really want to free Cuba. See, this is the problem with people like Lindsey, is the fact that he is so Golly, this guy sniffs his own farts. This is the problem with you have neocons like this, is he never met a war he didn't like. He never met a conflict he didn't like. And sometimes I wonder, has Lindsey Graham ever been in an actual fight before? Because it's not fun. It's not fun. It's not like what you see. This ain't Walker, Texas Ranger, dude. This ain't something you just watch on TV. And yet you're so willing to put people in harm's way just for the billionaires to have more. It is crazy to me that you have this guy giving this message on Fox News, and then people are sitting there wondering, oh, well, why don't Americans support our war effort? This is why. And make no mistake about it. Because just because the Republicans say it overtly and explicitly Doesn't mean that the Democrats don't support it. They do. It's just more covert and implicitly. This is why they got approved for a $1.5 trillion defense budget. And it's going to go through because they want the big corporations. They want the parasite class to get that money. War is lucrative business. Very lucrative.
Just a matter of time now. You see this at? Make Iran great. President Trump said the only way to make Iran great is for the people to take over. We're marching through the world. We're cleaning out the bad guys. We're going to have relationships with new people that will make us prosperous and safe. I've never seen anybody like it. This is Ronald Reagan plus. Donald Trump is resetting the world in a way nobody could have dreamed of a year ago. He is the greatest commander-in-chief of all time. Our military is the best of all time. Iran is going down, and Cuba is next.
All right. Well, we'll be watching what's next on Cuba. For sure, got a lot of hats there. The president's got a lot of balls in the air. Senator, thank you very much.
I'm not going to say what I was going to say because if I say it, then I might just get a strike on YouTube. That's Lindsey Graham. I want to share what is going on the ground. Because a lot of people aren't talking about this, but should be noted that these countries that Lindsey Graham said that they should be getting into a fight because Iran struck them, it's because they have bases and Iran struck the bases. So let's take a look at this. Uh-oh. Okay. So in a video uploaded to his YouTube channel responding to U.S. and Israel's war in Iran, American commentator Tucker Carlson said that Israel wanted to hurt Gulf countries such as Qatar, the UAE, Saudi Arabia, and Kuwait by providing Iran into attacking U.S. military targets based there. So let's listen to this, and then we shall talk about it on the other side.
Now, that wasn't a risk from the Israeli standpoint. That was the point. That was the point. They wanted to diminish the Gulf, and in 2 days they have. And I think anyone who likes decency and order and cleanliness is hoping that the Gulf will recover. The Gulf is not a threat to us. We have military bases in these countries. These are some of our closest allies. All of them are closer allies than Israel, by far. They're our friends, but they've been really hurt. And in a place like Dubai, which is basically part of a country, it's an emirate within the United Arab Emirates, but it's also a luxury brand, basically. People go to Dubai because it's beautiful and rich and clean, and above all, because it's safe and orderly. It's got the busiest airport in the world. You start seeing video on Instagram of smoke in the Dubai airport, and you're like, I think I'm going to Cabo this year. Oh, sorry, drug cartels. Whatever. Maybe you go to Sedona this year. It really, really hurts these countries, and Israel wanted to hurt these countries. That's the point. Wanted to hurt these countries. Wanted to sow chaos and disorder because they are rivals of Israel. So it's probably hasn't been reported, but it's a fact that last night in Qatar and Saudi Arabia, authorities arrested Mossad agents planning on committing bombings in those countries. Now,
wait a minute. Oh, you guys need to get into the fight because Iran is attacking you guys. Meanwhile, Mossad, which are the CIA equivalent in Israel, is planting explosive devices in these countries. Why? Why in the world would they be so willing to do that when they're supposed to be catering to them and going, hey, come into the fight and fight on the U.S. and Israel side? But why would you be planting bombs in their countries if you're trying to get them onto your side? People want to know. Baby, it's all coming out, It's all coming out. Let's continue.
That's weird.
Yep.
That doesn't make any sense. Why would the Israelis be committing bombings in two Gulf countries, which are also being attacked by Iran? Aren't they on the same side? No. Israel wants to hurt Iran and Qatar and UAE and Saudi and Bahrain and Oman and Kuwait. And they've succeeded.
I'm making a speculation here, but I think that Israel wants to harm the United States too. Yeah. They'd rather United States blood being spilled instead of their own. And Iran is targeting the military bases. Israel's Mossad agents were targeting civilians. See what I mean? And so you got to look at the way Israel and the United States, how they conduct themselves. And so, man, there's a lot of news. Just a lot of news. But let me see if I can get this. All right. So I'm going to share my screen here. This is Senator Blumenthal saying something very concerning. Let's get into this.
I emerged from this briefing as dissatisfied and angry, frankly, as I have from any past briefing in my 15 years in the Senate. I am left with more questions than answers, especially about the cost of the war. My questions have been unanswered, and I will demand answers because the American people deserve to know. And I guess I am most concerned about the threat to American lives of potentially deploying our sons and daughters on the ground in Iran. We seem to be on a path toward deploying American troops on the ground in Iran to accomplish any of the potential objectives here. And there is also, as disturbingly as anything else, the specter of active Russian aid to Iran, putting in danger American lives. Literally, Russia seems to be aiding our enemy actively and intensively with intelligence and perhaps with other means. And China also may be assisting Iran.
Let me stop there for a second. So let's take this in two parts. So potentially there will be a ground invasion in Iran. U.S. troops, your kids, the kids of your neighbors, the kids of your friends, maybe even some of your siblings, if you're if you have siblings that are involved in the military. So far, it's being reported that I think 6 or 7 American soldiers, service members have been killed. Right? I think it's underreported. I think there's probably more. But they just don't want to say because they need to keep the numbers reported to be low so that Americans don't come into an outrage and start demanding into this war more largely. But they are literally being sent to die. And then they will say, oh, well, and when I get to Donald Trump's press conference, he's going to be like, oh, well, we're winning this war and we've destroyed so much of them and we're doing great and blah, blah, blah. Baby, that's not what I'm hearing on the ground. The streets are talking right now. And I'm going to tell you right now, the U.S. bases around in the Gulf, as well as Tel Aviv, they got their shit rocked. They did. That's what the streets are talking. That's what the streets are saying right now. And they don't want y'all to hear about it, because if we heard about it, then we will go, wait, you're sending them into the slaughter. For who? For what? If Americans realized the dumpster fire that's going on right there, that was caused by Netanyahu and Donald Trump, and now they're going to send your kids, their kids, our kids into an unwinnable and a war zone that they will not live through. A lot more of y'all will be out in these streets. And that's exactly what's happening. And I find it quite convenient that a couple of years ago, that the government quietly created the automatic version of U.S. Selective Service. So basically, U.S. Selective Service, because here's how it goes. Every single male in the United States, you have to sign up for United States Selective Service by your 18th, after your 18th birthday. This is just in case they decide to reinstitute the draft. Then they will have the names and social security numbers of all of the males that are within fighting age in the United States. So I think it's typically between 18 and 26. Males is for males, right? And so they made it automatic, meaning you don't have to sign up anymore. Just as soon as you turn 18, when it comes to your social security number, you're already signed up for U.S. Selective Service. And so if Donald Trump and Pete Hegseth decide to reinstitute the draft, that means that they will be sending your children, willing or unwilling, to die for the Epstein class, to die on the altar of capital, to die for Israel. And that's exactly what's happening. I don't know if they're going to reinstitute the draft, but could it happen? Yes. I hope it doesn't, but I can see it happening. Let's continue and finish this up with Senator Blumenthal. Oh, and by the way, the whole thing about Russian feeding intelligence to Iran, yeah, I heard that's true too as well. But the thing is that Russia serving intelligence to Iran basically means that they do not side with the United States or Israel when it comes to asserting your dominance and subverting the sovereignty and self-determination of people, because Russians don't like that and they don't want to see it done to anybody else. Subverting the sovereignty and self-determination of a people is wrong. And so if Russia's doing that, then they're doing that as a response to what the United States and Israel is doing. Same thing with China. They want international law to prevail. Problem is, the United States and Israel do not recognize international law. All right, now we can go back to Senator Blumenthal.
So the American people deserve to know much more than this administration has told them about the cost of the war, the danger to our sons and daughters in uniform, and the potential for further escalation and widening of this war, a war of choice made by this president, not chosen by the American people, with potentially huge consequences to American lives.
So I think that's one of the things that we have to caution. There is a lot going on right there. Hang on, let me share this as well, because God, there's some. I haven't even gotten to what Donald Trump said. And I need to, but I'm not gonna be able to do the whole thing because of the sake of time. But Donald Trump was trying to essentially end the war because of the economic implications that have been happening all over the country. Because oil rose from $70 a barrel to over $110 a barrel over the last couple of days, and they basically had to lie and say that things were getting better. And then because of what was said by them, even if it wasn't true, then the price of oil went back down. But Iran is staying the course. They're saying, no, this war ain't over and we ain't done fighting. Gosh, there's so much. It's one of those where it's like I have way more information than time. But let me see this. I really want to share this by Colonel Lawrence Wilkerson, but let me just share a couple of things. So if you guys aren't following the Tehran Times on Twitter, if you are on Twitter, then I recommend it. I tried to look up the Tehran Times on Google, and when I tried to go to the Tehran Times, the link wouldn't it wouldn't allow me. It would time out every time. So I think they took down the Tehran Times website because they don't want Americans to actually look at what's going on underground in Iran as well as in Tel Aviv. But we're going to take a look here. This is out of Tehran Times. Says, excuse me, photo purportedly shows the destruction of a satellite communications center in south of Tel Aviv after it was hit by Iranian missiles. So this is one of them, right? So Tehran Times is on it. Let me share this. Breaking news: North Korea condemns illegal U.S. attack on Iran. It's like, despite the cold weather and snow, Iranians gathered at the capital, Tehran, to pledge their allegiance to the Islamic Republic's new leader, Ayatollah Sayyid Mojtaba Khamenei. Let me see here. A message from Yahya Sari, spokesman for Yemen's Ansarallah, to the people of Iran: you will crush the glory of America. It says Iran releases footage showing the launch of retaliatory missiles. This is all still going on, guys. It says this is from, oh my God, the foreign minister for Iran, Sayed Abbas Araghchi, says U.S. officials posting fake news about Strait of Hormuz to manipulate markets. See, this is what I was talking about, guys. That's what I was talking about. And then massive crowds gather in the streets across Iran to support the military and pledge allegiance to the new leader. So they have a new leader now, who is the son of Khamenei. I'm just going through here because there's so much that I really want to go over, but I don't have the time to. U.S. Secretary deleted a post in which he claimed that the U.S. Navy successfully escorted an oil tanker through the Strait of Hormuz. This is what I was talking about. They were lying just to manipulate the markets so that it doesn't look as bad as it really is, but it is bad. So that's how bad it is going right now. But let me just quickly go over some of Trump's remarks. And of course, I won't be able to go through all of it, but I want to be able to go through some of it. Whew, sacrificing myself, even though I'm still sick. Lord. All right, so let me share part of this press conference. So let's get into it.
And we've had tremendous success. But while we're doing all of these things, we're achieving major strides toward completing our military objective. And some people could say they're pretty well complete. We've wiped every single force in Iran out very completely. Most of Iran's naval power has been sunk. It's on the bottom of the sea. It's almost 50 ships. I was just notified it's 51 ships. I didn't know they had that many. Didn't last very long. And these are fighting vessels. They're meant to fight, but they're not meant to fight against us. We continue to target Iran's drone and missile capabilities. Their drones are way down. Their drone manufacturing's been hit starting today. We know all of the places they manufacture the drones, and they're being hit one after another. Their missile capability is down to about 10%, maybe less. We're also hitting where they make missiles and where they deliver missiles. We've struck over 5,000 targets to date, some of them very major targets, and we've left some of the most important targets for later in case we need to do it. If we hit them, it's going to take many years for them to be rebuilt, having to do with electricity production and many other things. So we're not looking to do that if we don't have to. But they're the kind of things that are very easy to hit, but very devastating if they are hit. We are waiting to see what happens before we hit them. We could take them all out in one day, but it's all resulting in a 90% decline in various things, but in particular, Iranian missile launchers and 83% drop in drone launchers. As you know, the drone launchers are pretty well shot. but we're at over 90% decline in the Iranian missile launchers, which is very hard to reproduce and very hard to get.
Okay, so let me share with you guys something, because I think this is really important. Because ultimately, Trump is blowing a lot of hot air, trying to make it seem like that he's winning a war, but in reality, he's actually losing. This reminds me of Wind Blow from Compound Enter the Fist. Whenever he's losing, he thinks he's winning. So therefore, he's like, I'm the first to draw blood. Therefore, I am the victor. But let's listen to what Scott Ritter has to say in regards to how the U.S. and Israel is doing.
But enter the Turks. You see, the Turks now, they have two facilities. They have one in Perwaiz near Diyarbakir. They have another one, I think, is Kirinjik, also near Diyarbakir. The Perwaiz facility is an old Cold War era facility used to track satellites. In 1997, we turned it over to the Turks. The Turks may or may not have kept it operational. I don't know. But it is capable of doing detection. Why? How do I know? Because in the Gulf War, we, the United States, used it to detect Iraqi missile launches to provide Israel with the detection of launch, time of flight, and possible impact. And so it was a valuable system. That system still could be used today to track the Iranian missile launches. Then there's the one in Kirinjik. This is a big X-band radar affiliated with the THAAD system. It's linked supposedly to feed data to Mark 41 Aegis Ashore missile defense systems in Poland and Romania. But now it's been repurposed, and because they have no more target acquisition, because the Iranians have taken out all the radars in the Middle East, the Turkish radars are now collecting the data and feeding them into the system. So you may ask yourself, why would Iran attack Turkey? Because Turkey's providing targeting data to the ballistic missile defense shield. And so Iran wants to basically make a note. Turkey is not an innocent partner party in this conflict. Turkey is an active participant in this conflict, and they're repurposing NATO facilities for America's use. This is not a NATO war. NATO is not participating in this war. Any nations that participate do so on an individual basis. So Turkey can't say this is a NATO function, therefore we're just fulfilling our NATO obligations. Turkey has become an active participant in this conflict.
So this is why a lot of these countries that are surrounded in the Gulf states are being attacked, because they are friendly with the United States. They have United States bases as well in their countries. And so Iran is attacking those bases to disrupt their intelligence gathering as well as their attack capabilities within the region. So, and then also, I'm not going to play this, but I want to share this tweet by Richard Medhurst, who is a friend of the channel. So Richard Medhurst actually shares this as well. Let me enlarge this so that people can see and read it. It says, Israelis no longer receiving proper warnings of Iranian strikes. Iran has wiped out the entire U.S. THAAD or THAAD and Patriot radar systems in the Gulf using $50,000 drones. It will cost billions and take a decade to replace. I pieced together all the satellite photos of the strikes and bases. So if you guys are not following Richard Medhurst on YouTube, his channel, he's also on Rumble as well. I highly recommend that you guys also follow people, follow Scott Ritter, follow Garland Nixon, follow Danny Haifong, follow Richard Medhurst. Rania Khalek is great because she has a lot of ears on the ground as well. She's Lebanese, so she has ears on the ground there. There's so many people. Colonel Lawrence Wilkerson is also great. I wanted to share something that he said, but due to the sake of time, I won't be able to. But these are some of the voices that are great to be able to listen to as well. Let's get back into some of what Trump says. And I really want to get to the part where he's actually talking to the press, because that's going to be the big thing. But let me make sure I get to my right spot. Let me see here. So yes, let me get here.
And usually what we were able to do through great equipment, a lot of smart people, as soon as they sent a missile up from a launcher, we were able to knock out that launcher within a period of 5 minutes or less, accurately right on the noggin. So now we have low-cost interceptors effectively combating Iranian drones, and our B-2 bombers recently dropped dozens of 2,000-pound bombs to destroy missile launchers all over Iran. And
wait, Don, does that also include the couple of Iranian schools for school children, particularly a girls' school that killed over 160 girls that were ages 7 to 12? Does that include that? Because that's what happened. In fact, you guys fired a Tomahawk missile at them. And in this press conference, Donald Trump was like, oh, there's many countries that have Tomahawk missiles. Yes, but many countries are not firing their missiles into Iran except for Israel, United States. So that tells me one thing, that one of y'all decided to fire a Tomahawk missile into a school for girls. And please don't tell me, oh my God, we care about Iranian women and girls and how they should have freedom, when you are willing to take them out with a missile. You don't care about Iranian women. Never mind the fact that Iran, 50% of Iran's population, 50% of the population of doctors in Iran are all women. And their highest graduation for college is women. You guys do know that Iran's a democracy, right? They literally vote for their president. They literally have a parliament. They do. And as far as supreme leader goes, the people who choose the supreme leader, oh, those guys are voted in. And the supreme leader is basically the religious leader, just like a pope. You know? We got problems with Iran, but we don't have problems with Italy or Vatican. Is it principles or is it just Islamophobia? Is it just misplaced principles or is it Islamophobia? Just asking the question. Let me move on here because I really want to get through this. All right. So let me see here. Yes. So 1539, let me make sure I get to this. All right, let's get to this question.
yeah, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. On Iran, you called it an excursion. You said it would be over soon. Are you thinking this week it will be over?
No,
Are you talking
but soon.
about days?
I think soon.
Okay, and with respect
Very
to
soon. Look, everything they have is gone, including their leadership. In fact, there are 2 levels of leadership, and even actually, as it turns out, more than that. But 2 levels of leadership are gone. Most people have never even heard about the leaders that they're talking about. So it's obviously been very, very powerful, very effective.
to Cuba, you said that Cuba wants to make a deal.
Yes.
Okay, hang on. You talked about the leadership is taken out. I just told you guys that they already got a new supreme leader, and it's the son of Khamenei. Hold on to that thought because I'm going to return back to that, and Trump is actually going to contradict himself. Because he's like, their leadership is gone. Really? Because that's not from what I see. But he's talking about, oh, it's going to be relatively short as far as the duration of how they're going to be fighting. I'm going to be honest with you. That's not according to their advisor, the military advisor. I'm just going to read this to y'all because this brigadier general, he's contradicting Trump. All right. Because Trump is full of baloney. Okay. It says IRGC advisor, Brigadier General Sardar Ibrahim Jabari says, as someone who is informed, I say this: we are prepared for 10 years of war with the United States, at least 10 years. They were ready for all the smoke.
اونها بدانن ما شاید بعضی ها اشتباه لفظی توی مصاحبه هاشون در داخل کشور داشته باشن، ولی من به عنوان یه آدم مطلع این رو میگم که ما برای 10 سال جنگ با آمریکا آماده هستیم، حداقل 10 سال. همین گونه که داریم موشک‌هامون رو، پهپادهامون رو استفاده میکنیم که انبارهای ما، ذخایر ما پر.
So of course I can't speak Arabic and I don't understand Arabic, but 10 years? They're ready to go 10 years? And Trump's like, it's going to be relatively short. Iran said, no, not today. They've been prepping for this for decades. Decades they've been prepping for this. Wow. They've been prepping for that for a long, long time. Now, I want to get to the contradiction. Let's go to this. All right. Share the screen again. And let's go to all right.
Do you have to take him out? Does he have a target on his back?
You mean the new supreme leader? You mean the son?
How can there be an Iran? With
Well,
another
I don't want to say that, but I was disappointed because we think it's going to lead to just more of the same problem for the country. So I was disappointed to see their choice.
Wait, you just said you took out the leadership. You just said you took them out. And now you're like, well, I'm disappointed that they chose this leader. So do they or don't they, Donnie? It doesn't make any sense. This is the equivalent of George W. Bush showing up on a aircraft carrier with a big old banner behind him saying mission accomplished way back in 2004, 2005. Like, oh, we accomplished our mission. What? It's like that that athlete that's in front of all the reporters. And he goes, what? It is wild to me, the delusions of grandeur that this man has. Let's continue.
Thank you, sir. You've said you have someone in mind to be the new Iranian leadership, if not the Ayatollah's son. What are you looking for in that person? Are you looking at someone internal, given that you just said that their leadership has been decimated?
I like the
and
idea
wiped
of, internal and eternal, come to think of it. But I like the idea of internal because it works well. I mean, I think we've proven that so far in Venezuela. We have a woman, Delcy, who has been, president of the country, very respected, she's doing a great job. And it's, no disruption. We had, as you remember, Iraq, where everybody got fired. The military got fired, the police got fired, the politicians got fired. There was nobody. And you know what they turned into? ISIS. And we don't want that. We don't want that. So I would like to see people that are inside go. Now they talk about the son of the Shah. They talk about other people, but, hasn't been there in many, many years. We have a formula that's been very good so far, and I think it'll continue to be good. The relationship is extraordinary with Venezuela, smart country. We've taken out 100 million barrels of oil. It's right now in Houston being taken care of and made so beautiful. And you have to see.
I can't hear him talking anymore, but he contradicted himself. So, one more thing, because I think this is also important. Make sure I have it ready for y'all to see. Because there is something I think is very important. See, they don't want you to know how things are really going, because if they did, then you would realize that this is an unwinnable war. Colonel Lawrence Wilkerson, Scott Ritter, Greg Stoker, all these military analysts have said the same thing, that this is an unwinnable war. But the United States doesn't want you to know that. But here's from Press TV. It says American company Planet Labs, after conferring with the U.S. government, has announced an unprecedented 14 days, 2 weeks, blackout on satellite imagery for West Asia, a move critics say is intended to conceal heavy damage to Israeli and U.S. bases following Iran's retaliatory strikes. They don't want you to see how bad they got hit. Let's read this, y'all. Due to the increasingly complex regional security environment, we're sharing an update to our data access restrictions in the Middle East. There are genuine concerns of use of Planet data over Iran, as well as an extended window of risk for recent imagery. After consulting with experts inside and outside of government, as we continue to balance operational security needs in our transparency mission, Planet has decided to take additional proactive measures to ensure our imagery is not tactically leveraged by adversarial actors to target allied and NATO partner personnel and civilians. As of today, we are making the following changes. Expansion of AOI. The designated area of interest has been expanded to include all of Iran and nearby allied bases, in addition to the Gulf states and existing conflict zones. 14-day delay. We're extending the delay for all new imagery, Planet Scope, SkySat, Pelican, and Tanager from 4 to 14 days before it becomes available to our commercial archive. It says we recognize that timely data is important to your operations and do not take lightly the decision to adjust our delivery protocols related to these services. Our technical teams manage these adjustments as a temporal buffer at the database level. Data is still collected and ingested, but is maintained until the safety window has passed. We will continue to actively monitor the situation and make adjustments only as needed to address the matters as they arise, but we intend to resume standard service as soon as safety and security conditions permit. Please reach out to your customer service manager, blah, 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 blah. Okay? As we appreciate your partnership and understanding as we navigate this complex situation. What we are learning from this process will be incorporated into our existing policies and protocols for active conflicts, helping us to best balance between safety and transparency. Best regards, Planet Team. So apparently, they don't want y'all to see how bad Israel and the United States got hit. Because if you knew, then that means you will be resistant to troops going in. And a lot of troops would say, yeah, we're not going. We refuse to go. And on top of it, I will show this photo too, because this is indicative of how bad it is. It is bad for Israel and the United States. This is out of Mint Press News. It says, breaking, Iranian ballistic missiles smash into targets in Tel Aviv. Israel initially claimed interceptions, but now there are reports of direct hits. And look at all that. This is it. This is Israel. See Jerusalem right there? Yeah. All that. All that. So, yeah. They got rocked. They got rocked. And they don't want you to know. There's so much more news in regards to this story that I want to cover, but due to the sake of time, I can't. I'm already over time. But look, keep an eye on this. And if you can talk people who are trying to enlist, talk them out, because it is not going to fare well. And you're not going to be protecting anybody. You're just going to be securing control to the parasite class. And there are organizations that are literally open for people who are military members who want legal and legitimate ways to exit or be conscientious objectors since they already are in the military. And those numbers are being shared widely because there's a lot of people who are service members that are realizing this is a unwinnable war, and they are sending our young people to die on behalf of a supremacist state and on behalf of wealthy parasites that want to strip the world of its sovereignty and agency. And we don't want to be part of it, because we need less death and destruction, and we need more solidarity. We need more egalitarianism, more dignity in our own country instead of stripping it away from people abroad. And Lindsey Graham, shut up. All right, guys, go ahead and give a like to the stream. I had so much more that I wanted to cover. Oh my gosh. But I already went over time, and I'm just like, it's after 6. I gotta go. But we shall get to some of the messages in the chat, particularly super chats, and then I'll head on out because brother's hungry and I gotta eat. Woo! I'm telling you. All right, so Kick Chat. I want a Kit Kat bar now. Don't mind me. I'm just being my big back self. I don't know why I said that. I said, I heard the word kick and I thought Kit Kat. So, yeah. All right, let's check to see if we have any Rumble rants. Rumble, where's your rant at? Ooh, okay. I'm gonna have to take a look at that. All right. No Rumble rants, but we shall get into some of the chats, and they'll include some chats on Rumble. All right. I'm sorry, guys. I had to go after Lindsey Graham because Jacqueline said I spelled Lindsey wrong, but who cares? He's a warmongering anyway. Hump a lot says he got something brown on his nose. Don't insult the brown stuff. This is an insult to the brown stuff. Edward says the only bad guy is the Trump administration. Lindsey Graham gets all these softball questions from Maria. However, if it were Sabby or JB asking Graham questions, Lindsey would have A meltdown. Now, if he had a meltdown, it'd be because somebody threw some water on him. We're off to see the wizard, the wonderful Wizard of Oz. Huh? Thank you very much for that, Holly. Appreciate it. Yes. Jacqueline says these intelligence agencies are downright evil. Yeah, that's why JFK ain't with us no more. I'm just saying. All right, Roger says, okay, JB, I got a 4-parter here. I miss profiting because I ain't got that type of YouTube money. So here we go. He said, good news, Lindsey is up for re-election this year. Bad news, all the independents running against him don't have a website, so they don't have any issues. So I won't waste my time telling you their names. Okay. Good news, there are candidates who have robust progressive policies against them. Bad news, they're all Democrats, so they will all obey Chuck. So I need to tell you who they are. It's important that we make a commitment to only platform indies and third parties. Compromises when we might have to make with the only thirds running. 2 libertarian candidates running as indie who actually have websites. Said their names are Jason Brinkus and Casey Whitner. My suggestion, get in contact with Larry to have them on. Thank you very much for that, Roger. Appreciate it. Let me see here. What's this, Terry? Hey, Terry, by the way. I guess that's flags, I guess. I'm not sure. It doesn't read the same on StreamYard. I'm sorry. Yes, Jacqueline, check to see if you can, because I don't think that we can access it here in the United States, which is kind of wild to me. I used to also be able to access the Pyongyang Times, and now they're making sure that you can't access them either. And Pyongyang Times is actually from North Korea. I think it's important that we get news from, the people who the United States considers their adversaries, because it's like, yeah, the United States is saying one thing, but the United States can also twist things to their narrative. So why don't we see it from other nations' perspectives? I think that's important too. The Wombat says capitalism incentivizes those people to buy into dips and shorting of stocks or other financial instruments, making fraud a lucrative investment. It's scary and badly effed up. Yeah, definitely. All right. Let me see. Hempcar says these statistics imply human sperm will approaching 0 by 2045. Also, make no mistake, female fertility is being affected too. He talks about this from Haaretz. Sperm decline is global and significant new study warns. Yikes. It might be from all the microplastics. Wow. Thank you for recognizing. Yes, it does take a lot to do these streams. Oh, man. All right. And then thank you very much, Bryce. Appreciate it. All right, guys. So I had to head on out. It was a great stream. Let me see. Let me check to see if I have anybody scheduled for. I don't think I have anybody scheduled for the next stream. At least not that I know of. No, but next Tuesday is St. Patrick's Day. So, and even though I can drink even though I had a transplant. I'm really not a drinker. So I don't know. I may just have tacos that Tuesday instead. You know, I might just do that. So, you know, and plus I'm counting calories. So, you know, I don't want it. I don't want Savvy to get mad at me for going over my calorie goal. Roger says, don't forget, we must get someone from the National Cooperative Business Association on your show. Yeah, that would be nice to have. Definitely nice to have. I'm trying to reach out to more people. All right. Oh, I forgot. I gotta end with something fun, y'all. Why didn't you remind me? Come on now. Because you know, we gotta laugh. You know how I am, guys. Let me see. All right. We gotta laugh. Why? Because joy is revolutionary. That's why. All right. So we ain't letting this go. I think I want blueberry muffins now. Let's go.
Said, do you know the muffin man? Yeah. Woo! Do you really know the muffin man? You said that you knew him, he lives right on Drury Lane. I said, do you know the muffin man? Yeah. Woo! Do you really know the muffin man? You said that you knew him, he lives right on Drury Lane.
Yes. I know the Muffin Man. Do you know the Muffin Man? You should if you don't. We all know the Muffin Man. At least we're supposed to. You know what I mean? Everybody, give that man a round of applause. You know what I'm saying? Oh my goodness. Whew. All right, everybody. It's time for me to go. All right, then. All right, everybody. All right, so I will see you guys in the next one. Thank you so very much. Please make sure to go ahead and give a like to the stream on your way out. Water your plants, water yourselves, leave the world better than you found it. Smoke them if you got them, drink them if you got them. If you ain't got them, or if you don't want to do that, then laugh, because joy is revolutionary. Read, because reading is fundamental. I love you for being you. And thank you so very much for watching the show and letting me be able to inform you as well and having a conversation. Mwah! Forehead kisses to every single one of you. And I hope you guys have yourself a great evening. Good night. Thank you so much for watching, and I appreciate it from the top and bottom of my heart. If you'd like to see any more, you can look here. Mwah! Forehead kisses.